Hello everyone, my name is I studied philosophy in St. Petersburg in Russia, and here in Cyprus I'm doing my PhD, and it's research about the superb poetry of Renaissance, and this is our fourth meeting of series Literature, Art and Technology, and today I'm continuing speaking about cyberpunk. Cyberpunk. And in the previous time, I generally made a general introduction into the genre, how it evolved in literature and how then later it turned into films. And I analyzed the movie The Matrix. I made a reference to ancient Greek philosophy, how in ancient Greek philosophy, precisely in Plato, in his book Republic, there is this famous allegory of the cave, which is this idea of the simulated reality, that maybe the world that we perceive, that we see, is not real, it is simulation, and beyond this world, like, there is bigger reality. And this is more or less the same idea that we encounter in Matrix. And again, summarizing shortly what happens there, to pass to the analysis of the next film. Shortly, what happens there? People doubt the authenticity of the outer world, right? But they don't doubt their own authenticity. So the characters in the Matrix, once they wake up, from this simulated world, they don't longer doubt themselves. So there is a clear distinction. There is the world of malice machines, and there is the world of humans. They know that they are humans, and they struggle with this world of machines. So this is clear. And then in the other movie, Blade Runner, I will remind that I'm talking about the first Blade Runner movie filmed in 1982, and it's based on the book by Philip Dick, written in 1968. It's a novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and I made an introduction into cinematographic analysis of it in the previous lecture, so I will just again sum up what was said the previous time. So the film is set in a dystopian future Los Angeles of 2019, which is a year ago for us. And they're synthetic humans known as replicants. They are bioengineered by the powerful Tyrell Corporation to work at space colonies. And they're a group of advanced replicants led by Roy Batty, played by Roger Howard. They escape back to Earth, and then a former policeman, Rene Dekarta, is hired to hunt them down. So the Blade Runner is a common name, kind of a slang name for someone whose job is to track down and to catch the replicants who escape. So what is the main theme? What is the main question, this existential or philosophical question raised in this movie? Again, it's the problem of authenticity. And if in Matrix the characters doubted the authenticity of the outer world, while their own identity was not problematic, in Blade Runner we encounter the world where we have humans on the one hand, and we have replicants. But replicants are just like humans, and they are almost undistinguishable from humans. And some of them even believe that they are humans, just like Rachel, that character, that femme fatale with whom the main character René Descartes falls in love. And she believes that she is human because she has memory implants that imitate human experience of life, emotions, and human memory. So in this world, in this situation where there are such beings, where technology can create such a being that is just like human, how can we be sure that we are true humans? How can we be sure that we are authentic, and that our most intimate, our deepest thoughts and desire are truly ours? And maybe everything that we know, everything that we feel and remember is fake, and maybe it's a product of some technology. Well, the actual engineering so far has not advanced to this point, even though maybe we're coming closer to it. But even besides being a relevant moral problem of genetic engineering, bioengineering, and robotics, all this sphere of problems, it can be interpreted as an allegory. That is, that reality, even if not engineered, but then it's socially constructed, as on the outside and on the inside likewise, and that is inside our minds and souls. And on this topic, the social construction of reality, I spoke about it in details in the first lecture, and especially in the second lecture, talking about the meaning of language in the construction of reality. So it's a language, and then it's a discourse, and then it's social and political and commercial technologies that shape our perception of the world, the way we feel and the way we think. And it's in the 20th century that this problem became technological, that is connected with virtual or simulated reality, with multimedia and digital communication in general. And so it became even more problematic, that we know that our reality through entire human history was kind of a construct. It was artificial in this or that way. It was a product of both art and technology. But now when we have this actual technology, this engineering that makes it real, that makes it material, it makes it even more problematic. And this is the question that concerns modern humans: how to understand what I truly want, who I am truly, how to find myself, how to figure out what my real desires and wishes are, that they are not imposed by some kind of, again, technology that is advertising or fashion or trends or social demands. And in other words, how to find authenticity and how to live authentic life. Well, it's a very complicated question, and it comes down to this initial dialectics of the artificial and the real, so it's very complicated. But today, just analyzing this problem in the particular movie, we shall see how it can be approached, how this problem can be approached. So, what happens in the Blade Runner? There, in the movie, the main character, the policeman Rene Descartes, and his name reminds us of French-Dutch philosopher of 17th century, René Descartes, and we'll see that it's not for no reason, this correspondence. And this character faces these questions as his work is to track down the non-authentic humans. And doing this job, he falls in love with a woman who then turns out to be not authentic and not even knowing about it. So the situation is very screwed, it's very complicated. And then the main character, this Blade Runner, he meets the replicants, Roy and Priest, who are more human than human in both ways. So more human than a human is the motto of that corporation that produced them, to show that their capacity is bigger, their physical capacity is bigger than the capacity of a human. But then in the drama of a movie, they show even bigger dignity. They show care, and they care about each other, and they show dignity, and they show greatness of soul, which is truly, they show that they are more human than a human in some ethical way. And even in the last episode, after the final fight between Descartes and Roy, the replicant, Roy actually saves the life of his enemy. And in the final scene of the film, and there is an open final, which is kind of arguable, there is an episode that gives us a hint that the main character actually suspects that he himself may be replicant, that maybe he's not authentic. And there is the question, like, is there any way to be sure that you are real, that you are true self, not kind of a robot or cyborg or replicant? And well, there are many answers to this, and even if it can be understood as an allegory, and there are like simple answers of a kind, don't live like robot, like wake up and think about what's going on, or act, and so on and so on and so on. But as I said, things are more complicated, and we'll try to touch on some philosophical approach to this. So, about René Descartes. The name of Blade Runner, as I said, Descartes, it echoes the name of the 17th century philosopher René Descartes. Here is his name and the titles of his major works. And we have, here we don't have advanced technology, not even PowerPoint, anything, so it's like really old school, and maybe it can even be described as retrofuturism anyway. So René Descartes, he raised this very problem: how can I know that I really exist? And it happened in the 17th century. So he asked, like, how can I know that I am real? That I am who I think I am. And in a way, the story of Blade Runner is the story of René Descartes, but in the 20th century, when the situation is completely different. It's a difference of historical and cultural setting likewise that changed the problem completely. So René Descartes, in his two major philosophical works, Discourse on the Method and Meditations on First Philosophy, these two, he contemplates on how we can have authentic knowledge and how can we be sure that we exist. And in the first book, he suggests to doubt everything, and this is his method, to doubt everything unless things come clear and distinguished. And as a mental experiment, he even supposes that what if it's not God, but it's some evil demon that committed itself to deceiving him, so that everything he thinks, that he knows, is false. But by doubting everything, he can at least be sure not to be dragged into falsehood by this demon. So this is the thought of Descartes in this experiment. I will read this passage. It's a translation of a passage. I have convinced myself that there is nothing in the world, no sky, no earth, no minds, no bodies. Doesn't it follow that I don't exist? No, surely I must exist if it's me who is convinced of something. But there is a deceiver, supremely powerful and cunning, whose aim is to see that I am always deceived. But surely I exist if I am deceived. Let him deceive me all he can, he will never make it the case that I am nothing while I think that I am something. Thus, having fully weighed every consideration, I must finally conclude that the statement, I am, I exist, must be true whenever I state or mentally consider it. So, in other words, one's consciousness implies one's existence. That is, even if I am deceived, even if everything is delusion, but then still there is someone who is delusion. There is the subject to it, and we don't doubt this subject. And this is the famous saying ascribed to René Descartes, cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. And actually it was not in the book itself, but it was in one of the replies of Descartes to objections to this book, because there was a big discussion on everything that he wrote, on his ideas, and so Descartes summed up his ideas in this phrase, cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. And for the reality of the 17th century, it was enough. It was enough as an answer, also because it was based on belief in God. And even if Descartes is not considered a religious philosopher, however, it was the reality of his era. And actually he philosophically proves the existence of God and of immortality of soul, and the full title of his book is Meditations on First Philosophy, in which the existence of God and the immortality of the soul are demonstrated. And as I said, in the 20th century, and for a man like René Descartes, and even less in our 21st century, we don't have, and this character of René Descartes and the we now in our days, we don't have this, so to say, luxury of religious belief to rely on it. That is, of course, it's now a personal choice to believe in God or not, or to confess some religion or not. But the point is that it's not real in terms of our social life. That is, our society is still influenced, or some aspects of our reality are influenced by religious institutions, but then it's not the essence of our reality, it's not the essential, and we live not in a religious society, but in society of technological capitalism, which is a completely different situation. And this arises what in philosophy is called the problem of the subject, that if in the 17th century in Europe this principle cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am, it was valid, but then in the 20th century, and even less in the 21st century nowadays, this principle, it doesn't work anymore for many reasons. And not only for the reason of creating the artificial intelligence. It's another question whether the artificial intelligence can be identified with human process of thinking or not, but it's a completely different subject. But yeah, I wanted to say that it's even a subject to a joke, this cogito ergo sum in the movie Blade Runner, because this replicant priest, who is that beautiful, tall girl, she's making a joke at the house of that doll maker. She says, "I think, Sebastian, therefore I am," and playing kind of a trick that a human being cannot do. And we see this irony because she's not a human being, but she thinks. And nowadays we come closer to it, that we create beings who may think or perform some processes which are very close to thinking, but it does not prove they are existence, it doesn't prove they are authenticity. So our Blade Runner, that René Descartes, it can be seen as an allegory of a common contemporary man who faces false and fake things everywhere, and he actually cannot distinguish the false from the true, and the fake from the real. Because he eventually loses any instruments of distinguishing the artificial from the real. Like the tests don't help that anymore. But it happens not only for the reason of technology itself, but for the nature of human existence itself. And technology, it only made clear that the human nature itself is natural and unnatural at the same time, or maybe supernatural likewise. And I talked about in the first lecture that this artificiality or artificial and the natural are in a we find them in dialectical relationship in a human. That is, it's natural for a human in a way to be artificial, because we don't exist without doing some art or creating something that is not natural. So it's natural for a human to be unnatural, or we're both natural and artificial at the same time. And yes, wherever we find humans, we find art and technology likewise. And we simply don't exist without this artistic and artificial dimension. And now, these days, he discovers to us eventually the meaning of the title Blade Runner. That is that this difference between the natural and the artificial, or between the real and unreal, of the true and the false, this difference is as thin as a razor blade. And so Blade Runner, in a way, is like every one of us, because we all, as human beings, run on this thin edge between the opposite things and trying to find the answers. Well, this is about the first Blade Runner, where this question was raised, the question about the human authenticity, or how we can find it. And since that philosophical attitude suggested by René Dekarta, it doesn't work anymore, so which other approaches exist? How else we can face this problem? How else we can solve it? Well, there are many, of course, approaches, and we cannot touch on all of them because we only talk about cyberpunk. So I suggest, and it's my interpretation, I suggest that maybe one of the clues on how to be a human in a human world, or how to be a human even if you are not human, is suggested in the sequel, in the second Blade Runner 2049, which was filmed in 2017, and it's this one directed by Denis Villeneuve, and it stars Ryan Gosling as the main character, and again Harrison Ford, because it's a continuation of the first movie. And of course there is a big debate on whether second Blade Runner can be compared to the first one, because the first one, of course, it is a masterpiece, and probably no other work can be compared to that. So it's not our subject to discuss like whether the second Blade Runner is as good as the first one, or is it worth comparing, and so on. Our goal is to follow the thought that the film unfolds. So as I said, the film maybe suggests us one of the answers on how to be human even if you are an artificial being. And the character of Ryan Gosling is a replicant, that is a synthetic kind of human that was not born but was manufactured. And his name is K, it's one letter, and he's obsessed with the idea that he might be a biological human born from Rachel and Rick Deckard. So at the end of the first Blade Runner, Rachel runs away with Rick Deckard, and we remember that she was a replicant, and about him we don't know whether he was authentic human, so how a real child can be born from them. But in the second Blade Runner they said it as a miracle, or kind of an event that will change the entire history, will change the story. So we know that there was a child born from this miraculous couple, and the character of Ryan Gosling, he suspects that maybe he is the child, and the entire movie is investigation, whether it's true or not, whether he's human or a replicant. And there are some clues like memories and objects, lost records, and so on and so on. And in the end of the film, what happens is that Kay, he meets the community of replicant rebels, who are kind of revolutionaries. They are replicants and they want a revolution, they want to change the situation. And they fight for their liberation, believing that they are more humans than the humans. Again, it refers to the first film, to it's more human than the human for the replicants. And this community of rebels, they give him this idea, they message him this idea that it's not necessary to be a biological human to be human and be free. And this is an important idea here. And eventually Kay learns that he is not a biological human, he is not a child of Deckard and Rachel, and he learns that his memory was implanted, and that the real biological child is not him, but the girl who implanted the memory, and she's kind of memory designer in this world. And then at the end, Kay decides to risk his own life, and he's risking his own life in order to save Descartes, to let him mate with his daughter, because they were separated. And they didn't see each other through entire life. And Kay, in other words, what Kay does, or the meaning of his discovery, is that he performs a moral action. That is, he saves life of the other without any personal profit, and this way he performs a moral action. And this is the discovery of this film, that maybe in order to be human, you don't need to be a biological human, but you need to have this ability for moral judgment and moral action. And that it's the idea that the true human is not a body, it's not just a biological base, but this ability to be an ethical being, not biologically, not to have some biological features, but to be ethical. And in philosophy, this idea of uninterested moral action as equivalent of human freedom, it was developed by Immanuil Kant in this book, Critique of Practical Reason. It's the second book of his famous trilogy. It was written in the 18th century, Critique of Practical Reason. Well, this is where he develops this idea of human freedom based on ethical action, and I will just refer to it, make a reference to it, and we unfortunately don't have time to go deeper into it. So another idea expressed through this problematics, is that from the point of view of social and political critique, the message of Blade Runner 2049 can be characterized as critique of biopolitics. So what is a biopolitics? Biopolitics is defined as an intersectional field between human biology and politics. And Mishel Foucault, about whom I was speaking in previous times, he defines biopolitics as the extension of state power over both the physical and political bodies of the population. In other words, it's a situation wherein the governments, they decide not only for administrative rights, but also for biological life of citizens. And it is precisely the situation that we have today with the coronavirus. When all these measures, their goal is to protect our biological survival, right? That's what it is. And one of the most prominent contemporary thinkers who criticizes biopolitics is an Italian philosopher, Giorgio Agamben, whose name I also brought previously. So, Giorgio Agamben, yeah, we have him here. So yeah, in the first lecture I referred to Giorgio Agamben and to his article, which I quoted, Art and Activity Politics. And according to him, in the most general lines, the problem is that nowadays the person identity is tied to their biological data. He talks about it in this book as well, Homo Sacer, Sovereign Power and Bare Life. And the biological data, such as fingerprints, DNA, and so on, and these days it seems just natural to us that that's the way it should be. How else we can identify a person if not based on their biological data? But that's now how it has always been throughout the history, and maybe it's not the best way to identify a human, because it reduces a human to biological existence, while of course the human existence is something much more complicated than biological existence. And this is something that Agamben calls bare life, biological existence, that for us as humans it's just inappropriate, it's the life that we don't want to have, or it cannot satisfy us. Of course it is a basis for us, like we are biological beings, but not only, and the human being is much more complex than that and more than that. And so Giorgio Agamben is criticizing this bare life. And again, referring to Blade Runner movie, and particularly to second Blade Runner, we see in this movie that it's not only biological dimension that makes us human. And the main character, even when he learns that he's not a biological human, he still can be human, or at least he hopes that he can be a human by acting morally, by performing a moral action without any personal profit. Well, that's what I wanted to say about Blade Runner. And again, if you didn't see it, I strongly recommend it. It's a great work of art. And another cyberpunk film, or more precisely animation film, which I admire greatly, and actually it influenced me and influenced my research in many ways. It's a film called Ghost in a Shell. It's an animation film. It came out in 1995. I wonder if I have the title printed here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. So this is the list of the movies that I analyzed, and the last one is this Ghost in the Shell. This one. So it's a Japanese animation film directed by Mamoru Oshii, and its main character is a female. It's Major Kusanagi, her name. She's a female cyborg who is searching for her true identity. A little bit like Blade Runner, but in a different way. So in this film, cyborg is something different. It's not a synthetic human. Cyborg is a mechanical body with a human brain implanted into it. So in this title, Ghost in the Shell, shell is something that refers to this mechanical body, while ghost refers to human soul, or this personality that lives inside this mechanical body, and it's like the human part of this cyborg. And again, the word itself, cyberpunk, again in the previous time I explained where it comes from and its etymology and so on, so you can take a look and see it. Yeah, so ghost refers to the soul that inhabits the body together with the human brain and human subjectivity in general and everything that implies it. And the film starts with a fascinating scene making of a cyborg. Again, I even attached it to the very first lecture. It's a short 4-minute video clip. And this video, it reminds us in a way the famous Renaissance picture painting The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. I think everyone knows it or saw it. It's the birth of Venus, where the Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, stands on a shell, and we see the shell arrives to shore, and we see the winds are blowing, and she's standing with her red hair loose, and it's this image of the ideal female beauty, of a goddess love. And here we see something similar and yet completely different, reverse. So we see a female body, again, of a main character coming out of water, as well, like on the picture of Botticelli, Venus is born from the waters of the sea, from the foam of the sea. And here we also see this body coming out of water, with the difference that the setting is totally technological, it's not natural, so it's some factory where they produce these mechanical bodies, where they produce cyborgs. And also, in a way, this picture, this introduction video, it reminds us also by another famous picture, famous Renaissance picture, that one of Leonardo da Vinci knows as Vitruvian Man. And it's this kind of man standing like this, and it's scribed into the circle and into the some proportions of proportions that show the thought of an engineer behind it. And the picture itself, it represents ideal body proportions. And it is in this drawing, and in Renaissance in general, appears the idea of greatness of a man who masters this dimension of engineering, who masters proportions, architecture. And it's kind of evocation to the race of this engineering, of technological thought. And it's the Renaissance idea of a human to be a crown of creation, or even to be creator himself, to dare to have this ability to create, to change the world around him. And this Renaissance idea of a human as a crown of creation, it reached its peak here in the technological world of the Ghost in the Shell. And in one of the dialects, Kusanagi, the main character, she says, if a man realizes that technology is within reach, he achieves it. Look at us, says that cyber character. Look at us. We are state of the art. Not long ago, this was science fiction. And actually, we can say it about many things that surround us, about our gadgets, even about internet, or many other technological things that are our everydayness now. They are nothing special, but if you think about it, it appeared just very recently. And it's miraculous in a way that we, as human beings, achieved that. And in this way, Ghost in the Shell is maybe the most optimistic of all the films mentioned in my lecture. And its hero, the hero of the Ghost in the Shell, the character, is as well problematized with the old nature. So this is a character who seeks again for the answer, who I really am, but also she's concerned with the question if I can be something more that I am now. And the perspective suggested here is a complete merge, the complete unity of human with technology and with the streams of information, with the ocean of information that exists now digitally. And well, now of course it may seem as a bizarre idea to us today, and but back then in the 90s, when this film came out, it was still a relevant idea, and there was a movement called posthumanists who believed that the future of a human is to overcome human form, to merge with informational machines and obtain new form of being. But then curiously, since that time, even though the technology advanced even much more, this movement, it almost disappeared. It's not relevant, and nowadays posthumanism is just kind of eccentric historical curiosity like many others, so it's not influential. This idea that people should merge with machines and with streams of information. It's just a bizarre idea. But then this touch of optimism that praises the human technological genius, it remains. And so with the same question, who we are, or what it is to be human, our mind question, it still remains unanswered. Or maybe there are many different answers to it, and searching them we discover again and again who we are and what it is to be human. And maybe this way we hope that in the future humans may coexist peacefully with their complex technologies and with nature, continue to artistically run on the blade of the ambiguities of enigmatic human being. So, that's it. And the last thing that I want to mention is about artificial intelligence. Those of you who are interested in understanding artificial intelligence, there is an excellent free course offered by the University of Helsinki. This one, course Elements of AI. Actually, I passed it. It's very interesting. It gives many details, yet it's a popular course, so it doesn't require knowledge or deep knowledge of mathematics or physics or engineering to understand it. So I recommend it. It's very good. There you will find answers like if artificial intelligence is identical to human thinking or not, or what is the difference, or whether we can or whether we should be afraid of artificial intelligence, of some technologies of artificial intelligence rebelling against the humans. Maybe you can find the clue here. So, well, for today, I thank you for your attention, and in the next episode we shall talk about the truth, eventually, how to find the truth of all that complexity. And I will talk about the different concepts of truth in science, and some concepts of truth connected to art as well. So stay tuned, and thank you. Goodbye.